There is a war that is being fought over our minds and our souls. The thing is that the war is filled with deception. The war is filled with deception, and they are deceiving people. And you have people who are deceived, and they are trying to deceive others at the same time. It's like that verse from the New Testament where St. Paul speaks of those who are deceived and deceiving others. People who deceive others are deceived themselves. And there is this phenomena that's taking place. And it's been going on for a long time, but most people just don't see it. And it is the fact that you have immense evil being percolated, being spread around under the guise of conservatism. I've talked about this many times, but I still want to really drive this point through your guys' heads because it is extremely deceptive. It's like that verse from the New Testament where Jesus speaks about how people will be deceived, even the very elect, if it were possible. Now, how could it be that the elect could be deceived? Because evil will masquerade itself as Christian, conservative. Now, this, of course, is not all evil. You have left-wing evil, which is very blatant, very in your face. It's right there, right in front of you. Abortion is obviously evil. Sodom marriage, all these things are obviously evil. But then there's the other side, which comes with the face of conservatism. And this is what Jesus was warning us about. It's why he said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. He warned the people about the Pharisees. Well, the Pharisees were very orthodox. I mean, they weren't like the Sadducees. The Sadducees were people who denied the existence of angels. I believe they also denied the resurrection. They believed that the concept of resurrection was impossible. So the Sadducees were more obvious. They were more in your face. But the Pharisees were very orthodox. They accepted all of the Hebrew Bible. They didn't reject any books in the canon, whereas the Sadducees, I believe they rejected most of the books of the Old Testament. I think they only accepted the first 5 books, so they were more in your face. Whereas the Pharisees, very orthodox. But nonetheless, Jesus warned the people about the Pharisees. He said, beware the leaven of the Pharisees. Beware the leaven of the Pharisees. It's all right there. So we have to be wary of movements that come across as conservative, right-wing. So I want to give you guys some examples of what I'm talking about, and I really want to talk about how this all ties into the greater phenomena that is occurring amongst us, this new sort of movement that has been taking place, this new wave of right-wing politics, ideology, etc., and how it really reflects how the world is becoming more and more volatile. People talk about free speech all the time, and they will say Elon Musk is a guy who's all for free speech. And Elon Musk himself has said that he is a free speech absolutist. Free speech absolutist. So he's all for free speech. So much so that the Brazilian government said, hey, Elon, you need to take down certain profiles from your Twitter platform or X platform, because these particular people on your platform were involved in the coordination and the planning of attacks on various government buildings in Brazil's capital, Brasilia. Because what happened a number of years ago, this was back in, I want to say 2022, Jair Bolsonaro lost the election. And so a whole bunch of people organized what essentially was a riot. And they organized it on Twitter, according to people in the Brazilian government. Or X, right? X. It's not Twitter anymore. I keep saying Twitter. I'm old school like that. So they organized basically a riot, and a whole crowd of Bolsonaro fans attacked various government buildings. And so this Supreme Court judge in Brazil said to Elon that he needed to take down the various accounts of the people involved in this political attack on government buildings. And Elon said, no, I'm not going to do it because I'm all for free speech. And so the Brazilian government said, well, if you don't, then we're going to fine your company and all that. And I think they were threatening to arrest a representative for Twitter in Brazil. I have to fact check myself on that one, but I think I remember reading that. But anyway, Elon Musk said, okay, we're just going to pull out all of our staff from Brazil. We're going to pull out. We're going to pull out from Brazil. And then the Brazilian government just shut down X from its country. You can't access X. I mean, at least not on the surface. Maybe you have some neo-matrix geniuses in Brazil who can access X. I'm not sure. But X officially is banned in Brazil. So you can say, well, Brazil is not for free speech. And you would be correct. You would be right. Brazil is obviously not for free speech. And you could say, well, first they're going to attack the people who organized this riot, and then they're going to go after other people, right? This is only like a Trojan horse breaking through the gates of free speech. And so pretty soon they're going to make free speech more and more restricted, and they're going to erode free speech in the country. And this is how it starts, right? You can make that argument, and it's completely legitimate. That's completely legitimate because for a very long time, governments, for thousands of years, governments have done this sort of thing, right? They have organized a certain event or something like that, and then they'll use it as a justification, or something will happen, and then they'll use that event as a justification. We can bring up what Hitler did. Before he took full control over Germany, there was the Reichstag fire, and then Hitler said, okay, we got communists amongst us. Let's take full control and let's implement tyranny. So people will point to a particular evil or a particular terrorist attack, or they will organize their own terrorist attack to then use it as propaganda to justify their agenda. And then they'll just take that event, and then they'll just use it as a pretext to suppress people and to implement despotism. I mean, this is all very, very possible. So I'm not arguing against that. While Elon Musk stood up to Brazil and said, no, I'm not going to comply in the name of free speech, the Hindu nationalists in India, for a very long time, have been telling the people in Twitter to censor certain messages against India's Hindu nationalist party, the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP party. This is the Hindu nationalists. They're far right. They're really disgusting monsters, anti-Christian. They hate Muslim people. They hate Christian people. And the BJP does not believe in free speech. It does not believe in free speech. And the amazing thing about this, and I should say also the disturbing thing about this, is that a lot of people in the right and the far right, they love Hindu nationalists. They love Hindu nationalists because Hindu nationalists are against Muslims, and also Hindu nationalists are all about nationalism. They're all about nationalism, keeping India, sticking to Hindu traditionalism. And so the far right in Western countries look at the Hindus and they say, hey, these people are fighting the Muslims. They're all for nationalism. They're all for traditionalism. We look up to these guys. These guys are heroes. And I remember some years ago hearing Varg Vikernes, the Norwegian neo-Nazi who burned a whole lot of churches back in the 90s in Norway. He's a Norwegian Nazi who's also a terrorist. Varg Vikernes is a neo-pagan, and he always talks, well, he doesn't really talk much anymore because YouTube got rid of his channel, but when he did have a channel on YouTube, he always talked about how Christianity is this foreign Middle Eastern religion and how it's foreign to Europe, and how Europeans are Indo-Europeans, and how their religion, their true religion, is paganism. And so if we are going to go back to true traditionalism, we have to get rid of Christianity and bring back the religion of our ancestors, which would be, in his case, Odinism, the worship of Odin, Freya, Loki, and all that bullshit, worshiping elves and all that stuff. And so Varg Vikernes always looked up to the Hindus, and he would say, you guys are always talking about, I think he would say things like, you guys are always talking about the Crusades and all that. Look at the Hindu nationalists. Those guys are the real heroes because they are preserving their Indo-European pagan religion, Hinduism, at its root is really Indo-European pagan religion. I mean, the people who brought the Rig Veda were people who were Indo-European, who spoke an Indo-European language. Sanskrit is the oldest Indo-European text that we have amongst us. It's the oldest one that has been preserved over millennia. Varg Vikernes was all about Hinduism. So a lot of the people on the far right, they have an admiration for Hinduism and Hindu nationalists. And so, but here's the thing is that these very people will always talk about free speech. They'll say free speech this, free speech that, blah, 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 free speech this. But the BJP party, the BJP in India does not believe in free speech. They censor people all the freaking time. And even before Elon Musk bought Twitter, the BJP was dictating to Twitter who to censor. And numerous times, Twitter would comply. Not all the time. Twitter did not comply all the time. To give to Twitter's credit, Twitter did not comply all the time. But Twitter did comply numerous times. And they would cancel out people's posts, or they would delete people's profiles, deactivate people's profiles, things like that, because the BJP would demand it. And the BJP would say, listen, if you don't do what we say, we are going to implement the law against your staff in India. And there was one occasion that I read about in which the police raided, I believe, the Twitter building in Delhi, in India. The BJP does not believe in free speech, and they will coerce or they will twist the arm of social media platforms to comply to their demands and censor certain people who are critical of the BJP, critical of Narendra Modi, their leader, who is now the leader of India. He's been the leader of India for quite a long time now, going all the way back to 2014. I mean, this guy's been around for over a decade now. And when Elon Musk bought Twitter and made it into X, he still complied with the BJP's demands, and he is still complying with the BJP's demands. He has not stood up to India. In fact, when Twitter was owned by the other guy, before Elon Musk, I forgot his name, but when Twitter was owned by its previous owner, there were various Hindu nationalists who lost their profiles, who got banned from Twitter because they were saying things that were insightful and were filled with hatred and all that stuff. And then when Elon Musk took over, he allowed for those Hindu fanatics to come back onto Twitter, while at the same time complying with the BJP's anti-free speech policies, pro-Hindu nationalist anti-free speech policies when it comes to people who are critical of the BJP. So the people who are hardcore BJP Hindu nationalists, they get their freedom of speech under Elon Musk. But also under Elon Musk, the people who are critical of the BJP, or they may post a documentary by the BBC that is critical of Narendra Modi, they have lost their rights on Twitter under Elon Musk, complying and acquiescing to the demands of the BJP. So is Elon Musk really for free speech? Now, he'll stand up to Brazil. Maybe it's because the people in Brazil want to take out the Twitter accounts of people who are for Jair Bolsonaro. And maybe it's because the people in India, they want to suppress the speech of people who are critical of the BJP or critical of Hindu nationalism. And so perhaps this whole smorgasbord of attacking people who are critical of Hindu nationalism or critical of the BJP is in favor of Elon Musk's ideology. Because let's be real here. Elon Musk is a right-winger. He's not a liberal. This guy is a right-winger. He will say things that riles up the right wing on Twitter and all that stuff. It's very, very obvious. And so if Brazil says, hey, we want to cancel the Twitter profiles of people who are far right, Elon Musk says, no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe it's because those people who the Brazilian government wants to cancel out of Twitter are far right, and Elon Musk agrees with them, and he is trying to help them out. And when India says, hey, cancel these people who are critical of the BJP, Elon Musk will comply. Maybe it's because Elon Musk sympathizes with Hindu nationalists. And maybe that's the reason why Hindu nationalists who were canceled out of Twitter before were allowed to come back in under Musk. Just a thought. Just a thought. But people sit here and talk about, oh, my God, oh, free speech. Look at what Brazil is doing. Look at what France is doing. Yeah, I understand the concern, and I'm not criticizing you for that. But I don't hear any right-wingers criticizing the BJP. In fact, I will see right-wingers supporting Hindu nationalism. Oh, I don't know, Robert Spencer, the guy who runs, what's the name of that website, Jihad Watch? He has expressed support for Hindu nationalists. Oh, Steve Bannon. Yeah, he's really big into Hindu nationalism. He loves Hindu nationalism, loves the BJP. He will work and collaborate with a Hindu nationalist to get people to support Hindu nationalism. And he will talk about the Bhagavad Gita and the Hindu religion and Dharma and all this stuff because he loves it. That dude loves Hinduism. Even though he claims to be a traditional Catholic and all that, he loves Hinduism. But the BJP is against free speech and he supports the BJP. So are these rightists really in favor for free speech? The answer is no. They are in favor of free speech when it is advantageous to them. But if they ever get full power, like the Hindu nationalists in India, they're not going to have free speech. They're going to be like the BJP. They're going to be canceling people out. They're going to be demanding that certain people have their opinions censored and erased and omitted and banished. That's the bottom line. The BJP, under the BJP, police officers have literally raided the Twitter building. That's by the freaking BJP. And yet you have right-wingers like Steve Bannon saying, oh, they're great. These people aren't for free speech. This is what I'm talking about. There's a war going on over our minds. There's a lot of deception out there. A lot of deception. And they want you to think these people are the people who are against free speech, we're for free speech, and then you follow them, and then you don't even know that these people actually will support Hindu tyrants. Hindu tyrants, the likes of which we saw in the film Indiana Jones. The ones who were plucking hearts out and saying, first the Muslim God will fall, and then the Jewish God, and then the Christian God, and then the thuggies will rule the world. Yeah, that type of stuff. These people are sick. And here's another example of what I'm talking about. People talk about the mainstream media. It's so evil, right? Okay, fine. Mainstream media is evil. I agree. Not arguing over that. Not arguing over that. There's certain things I just don't really want to argue about because it's just pointless. Because, yeah, you can point to evils done by the media. Hell, my father was a victim of the mainstream media. The mainstream media, CNN, did a whole thing against my father, slandering my dad. So, yeah, I get it. Mainstream media is evil. But I would be damned to say that the other side is righteous. I'd be damned. This is like saying, guys, ISIS is evil. Like, yeah, we all agree. ISIS is evil. But, you know, you have these Shiite fanatics, and they're great. It's like, you look at the Shiite fanatics, and they're not great. They're lunatics who do demonic rituals where they cut themselves for Ali. These people aren't great. They're both freaking evil. Both of them are evil. Absolutely. Or you could do the opposite. You could say, man, Iran is so bad. Iran is arming these Shiite militias in Iraq. Do you know who's killing the Shiites? Oh, ISIS is killing the Shiites. So ISIS must be the good guys. No. Like, no. Let's step on the brakes here. No. So mainstream media, yeah, bad. Of course, mainstream media has done bad things, has lied, has spread propaganda that's for the purpose of a nefarious agenda. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm not going to sit here and say the other side is great. Because while the mainstream media has done bad things, I'm looking at what's been going on Twitter, X, and on all these different social media outlets and shows and podcasts, and there's a lot of evil being preached. For example, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson now has a very popular podcast, and he brought this guy over. I think his name is something Cooper. Cooper is a supposed historian, and Cooper, on Tucker's show, talked about the Holocaust, and he basically said that the Holocaust was just a big accident.
You know, Germany, look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler is chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there. You know, you have like letters as early as July, August 1941 from commandants of these makeshift camps that they're setting up for these millions of people who are surrendering or people they're rounding up. And so it's 2 months after, a month or two after Barbarossa was launched. And they're writing back to the high command in Berlin saying, we can't feed these people. We don't have the food to feed these people. And one of them actually says, rather than wait for them all to slowly starve this winter, wouldn't it be more humane to just finish them off quickly now?
You know, the Nazis, they invaded Eastern Europe, invaded Russia, and they weren't really expecting to do massacres. I mean, that wasn't really their intention. They went into the Soviet Union, they got into this war because they thought the Soviet Union was a threat, and then the Nazis got together and said, what are we going to do with all these millions of people? I mean, we really can't take care of all of them. I mean, we just kill them. Now, we're not bad people. That was not our intention. We did not expect to see so many millions of people here, so we just didn't expect it, and so we just decided to kill them. This is the bullshit I'm talking about. You mean to tell me that the Germans didn't know that there was going to be millions of people in the Soviet Union, and they didn't know that people were going to fight them, and they didn't know that there was going to be partisans, and they didn't know there was going to be resistance? Of course they knew, and their intention was to kill millions upon millions of Slavic people. In fact, there was a SS leader. His name was Bach-Zelewski, and Bach-Zelewski admitted that tens of millions of Slavs dying in the Soviet Union was the intention. That was the agenda. They wanted to kill as many Slavs as possible, enslave the rest, kill all the Jews. Why? Because they believed in this concept of Lebensraum, or living space for the German race. Yes, it was all eugenic. But I don't have to give you guys all the details of this stuff. I don't have to prove to you guys this stuff. It's very obvious the Nazis were evil, but you have people who are trying to poison your mind to think in this sort of way that, well, the Nazis, they didn't really expect that all these millions of people would be there, and they were sort of a burden for the Germans, so the Germans just had to kill, millions of Jews, millions of Poles, millions of Russians, but that wasn't their initial intention, right? Even in their own country, they were killing people who they saw as inferior, and I'm talking about the people who had mental handicaps. They thought those people were inferior and that they deserved death, and they were killing them. In fact, these were the first victims of the Nazis, so they were always genocidal. Their minds were always bent on murder. When they first started ruling Germany, they were killing the people who had mental handicaps. And then when they invaded the Soviet Union, they expanded that ideology and applied it to other people. And this is why the Nazis, they described the Jews as parasites, as bacteria, and they said that, hey, we exterminated these people because they're bacteria. They didn't say, oh, we saw them. No, they said they're bacteria. That's why they killed. But you have people who want to poison your minds. I saw the same thing, or a similar thing, I should say, with Douglas Murray, the big right-wing voice right now who's a hardcore Zionist. Douglas Murray, he talked about Hamas, and he said, well, Hamas actually, they're worse than the Nazis. At least, the Nazis, they felt bad about what they did. And again, this is poisoning people's minds. Hamas is evil. I'm not going to sit here and say Hamas was worse or they're better or whatever. They're evil. I'm going to be very, very black and white about that. But to sit there and say that the Nazis are not as bad as Hamas because the Nazis sort of felt bad and that's why they got drunk after doing executions, that is bullshit. Were there Nazis who felt bad? Yes, but they were a minority. Most of the people followed orders, and there were a lot of people in the Nazi regime who straight up enjoyed killing people. But they want to poison your mind. They want you to think, well, they weren't really that bad, and it's bullshit. But this is the type of garbage that's all over social media now. It's all over. And by social media, I'm talking about X. You're seeing a lot of this stuff, and you're also seeing some of this stuff on YouTube. You saw more of it back in like 2015, 16, 17. But it started to really go down in 2018 when YouTube started getting more censoring. They started imposing more censorship rules and all that. So you don't really see so much of it. But there was a time, man, where YouTube was just filled with Nazis. They were talking about race and IQ and eugenics and how eugenics isn't really that bad and Margaret Sanger wasn't that bad and abortion actually is helpful for American society and blah, blah, blah. I mean, there was a lot of sick shit that was being percolated throughout YouTube. It was crazy. It was crazy. And that stuff might come back on YouTube again if YouTube decides to change its policy because they may just realize, hey, this type of thing is becoming popular. Let's allow it so we can get more money or whatever. It's all craziness, and there's just there's a lot of volatility in the world right now, a lot of it. I mean, you have some guy who tried to kill Trump yesterday, or recently. I don't know when this video is going to get uploaded, to be honest with you, but someone tried to kill Donald Trump again, and he was a leftist who supported Ukraine, and he was trying to recruit Westerners to go fight for the Ukrainians against the Russians. And I mean, it's just crazy, crazy shit. And it just shows the violent volatility that we are experiencing. It's crazy. You don't know what's going to happen. I feel like we're in a room full of gasoline, and all it takes is someone just to throw a match. There's a lot of craziness in the world. Yeah, and that's it. Those are my thoughts for this video. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.